Greetings from Costa Rica. Galactic 0 points. Another time capsule in the no time, no space. This one's called the Final Revelation because we're rolling in Gene Key 33 right now, which happens to be my SQ. If you know about the Gene Keys, the SQ is called the spiritual quotient. And if you look at your Gene Keys profile, which if you don't know your Gene Keys profile, you can pull one for free on genekeys.com with your birthday. The SQ, if you look at your Gene Keys profile, it will show you like a geometry of all these little bubbles or spheres. And if you look at it this way, you can see that like the SQ is what I call like the capstone of the pyramid. It's the very center point. And the spiritual quotient has to do with your age of 0 to 7 years old and your first 7 years of incarnation into a physical vessel. So actually, one of the things I like to talk about sometimes in the Gene Keys, there's something called the Trinity of Transformation. And it has to do with the SQ, the EQ, and the IQ. So the EQ, so the SQ is 0 to 7 years old, physical incarnation. These are 7-year cycles. And then the EQ is like 7 to 14 years old. And that has to do with your emotional body. And it's also where Mars is when you're born. And then the IQ is like your mental quotient. It's your intelligence quotient. And that's where Venus is when you're born. I'm basing this on tropical astrology. I believe in both 12 and 13, but when you pull a Gene Keys report, it's going to be in 12-month astrology calculation. And it's your initial neutrino imprint, your initial incarnation imprint. And we're moving far beyond that initiation because we're breaking out of karma. But we utilize these codes and this language to start to understand what you chose before you incarnated into this physical vessel to assist you in breaking down the old structures, doing the shadow work, healing yourself, awakening to the highest version of yourself, unlocking all the codes, unlocking all the gates, unlocking all the seals, just getting unlocked and unblocked in all ways. So anyways, the Venus code, the IQ, is your mental intelligence, and it has to do with 14 to 21 years of age. And it's very interesting to understand everything in 7-year patterns like that, because you can even start to repeat, like Greg Braden talks about this too, with the repeat of 7-year cycles. Like everything that happens in your life comes in 7-year cycles, whether you're actually aware of that or not. And so it's interesting to look back at your emotional patterns, right? Last week or Wednesday, I was talking about the purification. And I talked a lot about the purification of what we're putting in our body, with technology and with food. But I didn't really talk about the purification of the emotional body, and emotional intelligence, which is something that I'm very passionate about. And something we should all be passionate about. If we believe in frequency, if we believe in ascension, if we're considering the idea, emotional intelligence, understanding how to purify yourselves, understanding how to observe yourself and to navigate the emotional plane is a great invitation. And it benefits everyone, right? It benefits you, to do your emotional work. And it benefits those that are around you, because it's not always easy to deal with someone in emotional states. And so I know there's like this idea in emotional intelligence. It's like, yes, see the emotion, feel it to heal it, all of that. And also learn why you have patterns, learn why you keep going into certain emotional states. Learn how you can rewrite these patterns. Learn how you can rewrite these codes. Are you in control, or are your emotions in control? This is an invitation on the Jedi the Jedi mastery path. That's what I like to call it. So that's an invitation for all of us, the emotional intelligence. And yeah, just throwing out some more high level understanding of the gene keys with that trinity of transformation. If you ever feel called to dive into the depths a little more with your gene keys chart, I'd be honored to do that with you. I've been studying these genetic codes for quite some time. I've got quite some revelations to share. And yeah, so speaking of revelations, so we're in Gene Key 33 right now, which is called the Final Revelation. And we're definitely going to go through some of this today. The 33rd Gene Key. And here I wrote, Dove of Peace, Purity, Eternal Life, 144. That's what we're here for, to unite the 144 tribe. I wrote, I am the I am presence, bringing the Christos to all. Feel free to take off your mask. Purity, eternal light, rainbow light body activation. After the flood, there is always a sign, a dove, a rainbow, the symbol of a new world. Leave the stories behind to unlock the gates. So we'll read through the 33. This is Gene Key 33 is called the Final Revelation. It's also the access portal to the higher dimensions. So I'm definitely going to read out of the book today. And it's also part of what's called the Codon Ring of Trials. And so in the gene keys, there's something called the codon rings, and they're chemical codon groups that they put together more of a collective synchronicity field of destiny, of our awakening, of how we're all coming together in formation, how we're all coming together as pieces. The Gene Key 33 is a part of what's called the Codon Ring of Trials. And the Codon Ring of Trials is composed of Gene Key 33, Gene Key 12, and Gene Key 56. And so we were just in the 56, not so long ago. I'm going to read you a little bit about it. Actually, I'm gonna read you all through this right here. Wow, it's hard to even believe. Like every time I work with things, like I go back and revisit things, but this one I have different dates of when I went into this knowledge. This is called the 1 point. This is from the Venus sequence, which is a complementary book to the Gene Keys. All my books look like crazy Dead Sea Scrolls, I like to say. Yeah, I'm going to just roll into this. I'm going to read some of it with you. Oh, and I do want to let you know, today in the Galactic Maya, because that's what I'm here to do, unite the 144 tribe, weave in the codes of the Gene Keys and the Galactic Maya wave. Today, we are on number 234, White Cosmic Wizard. I love wizard days. The white days are always days of refining. And it's the 13th tone, the cosmic tone. It's kind of hard to believe. It feels like it was just Cosmic Dragon 13 days ago. It was, but it feels like it was less than 13 days ago. Anyways, the 13th tone, the 13th day is always the final day of the wave, because these waves, they go in 13-day cycles. There's 20 13-day cycles. This is how I time keep. I actually believe there's no such thing as time, and time is an illusion. And so I call this my time traveler's calculator, and it's falling apart. I'm hoping to get another one soon for my friend. But yeah, so on the 13th tone, it means that we're finishing up the wave. The wave started with the theme of the white wind. So all of this 13-day cycle that we've gone through is closing out today. So you can look back and think of like what you were going through in these 13 days, what was going on for you, what Yeah, anything that's coming up. This 13-day wave had to do with communication because the wind is about communicating, breath, spirit, connected to the high priestess. So you can be thinking about like, what did I hear over the last 13 days? Like either physically, audibly hear, or just in the communication with nature or within yourself, you know, the inner reflection, like whatever. What came to you over these last 13 days, and today is the close of that day. So today, the 13th zone, is the day that we take cosmic flight. And the Galactic New Year also started in this wave. So we're just getting started. Every day is just getting started. I like to say we die daily and we are resurrected and born anew every single day. And tomorrow we'll start the Blue Eagle wave. So we actually only have 2 more waves of this whole Zolkin, and then we'll start back on the dragon wave. We're gonna go to the eagle wave, and we'll have a 13-day cycle of that. That's gonna be bigger picture, bigger vision for 13 days starting tomorrow. But today we take cosmic flight. So let's have some fun with that. So we'll talk about the 1 point. Exists at a quantum level beyond the physical observable plane. And it serves as a template for life to come into manifestation. It is the white hole through which light passes from the formless dimension to the plane of matter. It is where non-being becomes being. It is an intriguing mystery that in order for our human evolution to attain its zenith, our consciousness must return down this same pathway, passing through the black hole of the 1 point back into the realm of the formless. This is the true meaning of the pathway of realization. It is also why words and language are no longer capable of capturing the essence of this experience. This experience itself is beyond words. Temptation and distraction, the ring of trials. Throughout the gene keys and the golden path, we have heard about the mystery of the 21 codon rings, specific groupings of gene keys chemically bonded together in genetic resonance. The breadth of the wisdom contained in the codon rings remains outside the scope of this book, but we can still glean a great deal of wisdom from them. 1 codon ring in particular has a strong relevance to this pathway of realization. This is the ring of trials, which consists of the 3 so-called stop codons and the 33rd gene key, the 56th gene key, and the 12th gene key. The stop codons represent codes in our DNA that terminate processes of genetic replication, creating pauses or breaks in the process of protein building. See, we're getting deep in here. We're actually talking about how DNA stops and starts. Even from a scientific level, they look at it like this and they understand there are 64 codons of DNA in the human body. Like I've met people that are geneticists in like the scientific, doctoral, medical type of way. And of course, they also think I'm a little crazy and out there because they're so rational and logical. And they've maybe never met a person like me before, but I'm just like ready to dive in, and I'll show them all these little charts with like the ACTGs and like the amino acids. And I'm like, okay, so you know these amino acids, you know this this DNA codon, and now look, let me show you what that codon means, and let me show you how it's connected to the stars, and eventually we are called to bridge the dimensions and bridge the world from the matter and the non-matter, from the physical and the spiritual. And Gene Keys is one of the ways that we're really here to do that. And so, okay, the stop codon, let's go here. As archetypes, the 3 stop codons of the Ring of Trials represent a crux point in the evolution of human awareness. As we approach the pathway of realization, we undergo a process of deep inner testing. Once we have opened up our SQ to its true potential, the currents of the higher frequencies begin to course through our being. We feel a new kind of power opening up inside us. The light of our genius opens up vistas of potential that we may have never dreamed of. There is a delightful urge at this stage of our inner journey to try and hold on to the higher frequencies and to follow their potential out into the world. The release of this great love inside us naturally urges us to want to be of service to the world and to others. It is possible to linger at this wonderful stage for the rest of our lives, and we can become a powerful force for good and change in the outer world. At least it may appear that way. The ring of trials sets us 3 mythical inner trials before we can continue the very pinnacle of consciousness. And so the main one I wanted to bring you into right now is the first trial, the 33rd gene key, remembering mindfulness. Hola, sister. Okay. At its lower frequencies, the 33rd gene key is the shadow of forgetting. This is our first inner challenge. This gene key pursues us throughout our evolutionary journey. It opens in us the gift of mindfulness, the knack we develop of allowing awareness to continually witness our own life. At the higher frequencies, our self-awareness is usually in an advanced stage of development. Awareness catalyzes transformation, which is how we evolve in the first place. However, our awareness is tested at its deepest level once we begin to unlock the codes of our higher evolution. It becomes all too easy to forget our inner journey and follow our love out into the world. There is a noble tendency at this stage to want to save the world in some way. With mindfulness, all impulses are eventually shown for what they truly are. The impulse to serve others, while noble, can also be a distraction from continuing our inner journey to its true conclusion. This does not mean that the impulse to serve is wrong. It may be correct for us, but this is a classic stage in our evolution. Until our awareness has reached the sphere of the core, which is going to be your vocation sphere, our true higher purpose cannot be revealed. So I have the 33 in my SQ and I have the 44 in my core. I'd like to know what everyone's codes are too. Let me know if you have the 33. That's the main one I'm talking about today. And the programming partner of the 33 is the 19, and you can't have one without the other. What's up, Lucy, Pauline, my star sisters, connecting the grids from Australia and Texas, my old home country, my old home state, who seems to be calling me. I'm looking for miracles. Maybe I went a little too far out of the world. Maybe I stepped a little too far out of civilization. I don't know. You know, it's like my daughter's calling me home in Texas. Well, she's in Florida right now. And I'm like, God, I just rebelled so hard against the whole system. I was like, no government, no taxes, no identification, no banks, no. And now it's like, oh my God, am I really gonna go back in there? Is she calling me home? We'll see. The only way I'll know for sure is if it all lines up. Otherwise, I know I'm just sitting here, and that is my job, is to sit in the stillness and to trust and to trust when I'm called out of the stillness. And yeah, it's been an interesting path. Oh, what up, Erin? Nice to see you. Hello, so divine meeting you. Let's get you back to Austin. Oh, please. She's calling me home. I'm getting it right now. I'm getting like the 5th degree, 10th degree, all of it. And I'm like, oh my God. I got a message from my children's father, who I still love dearly. He's holding it down with all 3 of my wild childs. They're in Florida now. They moved to South Florida. So sometimes they're in Texas, sometimes in Florida, but Yeah, I've got myself in quite a little rebellious situation here. It's like, yeah, and I'm just laying it all out for you guys. You know what? I'm all about being transparent as fuck, you know? And it's like, I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. And I try to be so open and true about what I'm going through so that there's never like just a pretending like it's all perfect and great. I mean, also, I have learned to operate at a frequency where truly, no matter what's going on, it is perfect and great because it's exactly what it needs to be. Like that's boss mode for me. But I'm also learning to like call in the tribe and ask for help. Like if we're meant to be, we are meant to be synthesizing, synergizing, and working together. And so, yeah, it's good to be connecting all the grids. Okay, so 33, with mindfulness, all impulses are eventually shown for what they truly are. The impulse to serve others while noble can also be distraction from continuing our inner journey to its true conclusion. This doesn't mean the impulse to serve is wrong. It may be correct for us, but this is a classic stage in our evolution until our awareness has reached the sphere of the core. So mine is the synarchy. Our true higher purpose cannot be revealed. And that's why I actually feel like with my role working with the 44, I'm here to work with the karmic bloodlines. That's what the 44 is all about. And both of these, the 33 and the 44, well, the 44 is like mainframe computer, flip the switch, remove all the interference patterns. It's the synarchy. It's the new form of human government. And so, yeah, when we talk about the idea of sovereignty and self-governing systems, I've definitely been called into those realms. And how do you balance that with like letting go of all of the old systems? The 33rd gene key tests, hones, and sharpens our mindfulness to its greatest extent. Each of the 3 stop codons of the Ring of Trials holds the potential to pause or halt our inner journey. That's the temptation when we're waking up. You know, the 56 is also part of the codon Ring of Trials. And in that one, in the highest form, it's intoxication. And it kind of talks about like, you get into that intoxicated state. We're not talking about with substances, although it can be. But you know, I've been in the highest realms of all of these states, and what he's calling in, Richard Redis, and some of these writings is that it can get really comfortable up there, but it might not always be the mission to stay there. Now, another thing I think of with the 33 can be something like, I don't know, I'm going to use an example here, you know, you go have a medicine experience, right? And all of a sudden you're like ready to be a shaman, right? And it's like, you just got started, like keep going on that journey before you're like cutting that off and going in to serve other people. It's like, there's still more, there's still more, like peeling all the levels back. And I know that was like, I carried the 29, which is the leap into the void. And it really is that. It's like just leap into the void and let it shape you and mold you and take you where you need to go on the path of the rapture, the purification that we talked about on Wednesday, which is the North Node that humanity is going through right now. And I can feel it. I can see that other people are feeling it too. There's a lot going on in the energy field. There's a lot going on in the emotional field. There's a lot going on for a lot of people. I'm seeing a lot of people cross over the bridge right now, like die in this physical form and leave the planet. So I can really feel this rapture window. And so we went from the 30 on Wednesday, the rapture, to the 33, the revelation. And so I'm going to read you a little bit about that. Let's see, am I gonna read you any more out of here? I don't think I am. You guys like my beads? But I will show you this one, the flowering of the rainbow body. with that little rainbow Taurus vibe. Just these images, you know, they help you remember something. And I see myself as that all day, every day, right? We're the cosmic beams and streams. Pure being beyond identity and meaning. Prolonged states of physical stillness. Resting in a state of pure being. Yeah, I definitely do that. But I'm also like recognizing, you know, part of the pearl sequence is about and prosperity, activating your prosperity, specifically in the pearl. I think it talks about this, is like even when you find your way back home, like you have to return to society. And that's, I think I'm at that cusp right now, the returning to society. Do you have the 260 postulate? I don't know. I just carry my little time traveling calculator around with me everywhere I go. And someone's about to give me a new one since this one's falling apart. I have these everywhere. I have many versions of them, but they just whoop. This is I hardly use a computer. AI, yeah, not really. This is my calculator. You have to tell me if you're talking about something different than this one. You probably are. This is called the flowering of the rainbow body. Many cultures have described this process of the final flowering of our consciousness into the so-called rainbow body. In terms of our DNA, it seems to be a hidden higher programming function wired in every human being. In the gene key synthesis, it is referred to as the process of embodiment. Oh, my favorite topic. Embodiment and authenticity, my favorite topics. And you can't talk about them unless you're doing them. You can't talk about it unless you're being about it. And there's nothing I like more than feeling that embodiment, talking about embodiment, encouraging embodiment, and encouraging authenticity in a world of artificial and superficial. It's so unfortunate and sad that I can feel that superficial energy in space. May I never be that, you know, may I never be the superficial one. And so opening the heart to the kindness and the equality and the balance in all fields is just, wow, that's freedom. You know, that's the invitation for all of us. Embodiments. And it's not as far away as we think. They're just things that we have to let go of in order to embody. And embodiment is the backbone. The embodiment is the pillar of strength to be who you are everywhere that you are. You really got to know that you know who you are, and to not compromise yourself. Like when you get into a space and there's something that looks like peer pressure or something going on that isn't who you are, that you're able to stay strong in your pillar, you know. Let's see, described through so embodiment is described through the teachings of the Corpus Christi in the 22nd gene key. We tap into the universal energy pattern known as the Taurus. Yeah, so gene key 22 is the 7 sacred seals and the cosmic mother's redemption. This is how we bridge the idea of revelations and the 7 sacred seals and the angels sounding their trumpets and the 144,000. And this also connects us to the Telectanon prophecy, which mentions the seals, mentions the angels, mentions the trumpets, the Telectanon prophecy. Not everyone knows about that one, but this is the prophecy convergence. This is a harmonic convergence of all prophecies coming together. And there are some things that need to be done in these prophecies. There is a final confrontation with the things that are not true, with the things that are deceiving. You know, the true Justice League are the righteous. In the Telectanon prophecy, it talks about the holy victory march of the 144,000. I came for that. Bringing together the people of the dawn and the people of the book which sometimes I think of the people of the dawn, like the bringers of the dawn, you know? I love that book, actually. That changed my life forever. It was the first time I like opened my mind to I guess you could say, like a galactic perspective. It was 8 years ago, right when I landed here in Costa Rica. And someone gave me this book and told me, you're going to think it's crazy, but I think it fell off the shelf and I'm supposed to share it with you. And I just opened it and I did think it was crazy. And I didn't tell anyone about it because I didn't want them to think like I was crazy. I was still learning how to be authentic. But it was the first time I was like, oh my God, I know why war exists. It all makes sense. The light and the dark, the government, the programming, the frequency. It was like I started to learn you got to take everything to the galactic level to understand this. And then it's like I've been bringing this up pretty much on every topic, on every call that I've been doing. But with the chatter of the idea of cosmic disclosure, let us be aware, very, very aware, that this whole reality is cosmic and it always has been. We are multidimensional beings that absolutely forgot. That's the shadow of the 33 is forgetting. And many of us have not remembered. I got the roosters crowing behind me. A shinky one, by the way. And so when I think of the idea of cosmic disclosure, alien invasions, alien races, every single person out there is operating at a certain genetic level or a certain frequency level that's representing a certain type of race of being. And I know that there can be what you might say malevolent and benevolent races of different sorts. I like to take it to like you're either taking or giving, and law of one. You're either serving yourself or you're serving others. And I also just like to, I do have maybe for some an offensive generalization around the idea that the whole medical system is gray, alien in nature. Considering the book for anatomy is called Gray's Anatomy. And of course, that anatomy book has some limitations because it doesn't understand, nor is it computing or talking about the idea of genetics and DNA from the perspective that we're speaking of here connected to astrology. No one learned that in medical school. And so we've got to start, obviously the current medical system hasn't been working or we wouldn't have so many people fat, sick, and nearly dead right now. So we are absolutely in the midst of the stillness and the peace inside. But with all respect, saying we're kind of in the center of that, like, oh, we're in a planetary emergency right now. It's time to get more clear. It's time to get more stable about who we are, accessing our multidimensional capabilities, being able to see that there have been many draconian operations, many gray operations, many warlike operations, many demonic, parasitic operations that have been taking place on our planet for a long period of time. And we shouldn't just pretend that we don't see those, because that's how you get sideswept by data center, alien invasion, UFO machines that want to parasite their way into the holy lands and suck up all the water. That's the way I see it. Everything is alien in nature. You got to bring everything to the galactic perspective to start to understand it. And that's where you bring galactic solutions. So of course, as I started to realize that, I went into Star Wars Rebellion, the Resistance, right away. That was a part of my path in surrender and starting to remember, because it's my SQ, the 33, the key that we're in right now, to start to remember what's really going on here. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to bring up, this is my gene key 33, the dove of peace. My book is falling apart. I've had people give me new books, but like it's not the, oh, I got this in my 33. Little image I got from in my book. This actually came from the Book of Mormon. They always got to make the dudes be looking like Conan the Adventurer over there, but what's going on in this pic? They're in the mountains. Oh, and like this, the Christ is like baptizing this woman. Alma bautiza en las aguas de Mormon. Oof. Yeah, that truth hasn't still fully coming out about what's going on in the Mormon church, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's starting to. Those are the real revelations, and that's the real cosmic disclosure. When you find out that these church and religious operations have been running satanic rituals, feeding off the people's souls, energies, and bank accounts, because they're sitting there with the riches, the millions and the billions, churches on every street, and the people ain't got no food to eat. I heard that in a song one time. And it's like, so now we're starting to really understand and remember and open our eyes. That's the real revelation. This other side has to do with Samuel. And yeah, there's some Spartan shit going on in this one. We got arrows, bows and arrows, and like castles, and I don't remember the story of Samuel, but all right, I think I'm just going to start rolling with this. I'm going to read you some of the 33, and maybe I'll read the whole thing. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Normally I just drop in and I start reading some of it, and then I might have some things to share. And yeah, we'll just see where it goes. Okay. So the 33rd shadow of forgetting. So by the way, this is a stop codon. There's 3 stop codons, the 12, the 56, and the 33. And there's 1 start codon, the 41, which is in Pluto. And it was just in the Earth and Moon for the full moon a couple days ago. So 41 is the emanation. And that's the start of the new process. That's the start of the codon. So these are the stop codons that can stop and end a process, and then we can start a new process. So the 33rd shadow of forgetting, the mire of the Maya. Oh, and I forgot I wanted to do one other thing. I've got my little I Ching book here. And I wanted to read to you specifically what the I Ching's translation of the 33 is about. Because the 33rd code is heaven above, mountain below. And in the I Ching, it's called the retreat. It says, the mountain ascends to heaven, a judicious retreat. The enemy has the advantage under the present circumstances. A retreat is the wisest course, but for future success, it must be well considered. The mountain provides shelter and the perspective that comes from rising above the situation. From this vantage point, the next battles can be calmly planned. You know, and when I read that, I feel how I've been kind of like pulled out of my normal life, my normal world, the outer influences of the world, to go more into the inner realms so that I could see more clearly and not be pulled in or sucked in or deeply influenced by the external field. And this goes in all directions around what's going on, let's say from my home country, but all over the world, with technology, with food, with all of the temptations of Babylon. Truly. It's like, it's a lot easier to stay clean and clear when you're not surrounded by all of the glitz and glamour. That's just naturally how it works. So I've definitely been holding that retreat, you know, that 33 in the mountain, as I've been watching the AI come out and things kind of going full force and being like, okay, from this stable, clear, calm oracle position, what is next? What do we do? And you know that we're just getting started. We're gathering the tribe. We're gathering in gate 7, gene key 7. You know, it's called the army. And it's I call Mary's Army of Light. It is the 144,000. We are here to unite the tribes. We are here to gather. We are here to remember. This 33 is an access portal to the higher dimensions. So, the Maya of the Maya, every time a human being takes an incarnation on this planet, there's only one thing they bring with them: their memories. And we're not talking here about ordinary memories as we understand them. There are many types of memories. Except for exceptional cases, we do not retain memory of our past lives or of any existence before we are born. Yet, even though we do not recall the before, we still carry the memory of it within the layers of our subtle body or aura. There are cultures upon this earth that have devoted entire fields of scientific and subjective research into the process of incarnation, of how we enter and leave the body. The Egyptians, the Tibetans, and the Chinese Taoists, to name a few, have left us reams of knowledge concerning these subjects. But perhaps the greatest and certainly the most ancient of these cultures is the Indian culture, specifically the great wisdom of the Vedas. And I can think about it for me personally. I was born November 18th, 1982. I didn't have any memories or recalls of anything. Like, I do remember watching E.T. and Firestarter with Drew Barrymore and being like, I can relate, But I did not have any past memory recall of anything. All of my life growing up, it wasn't until I died on the table in 2016 that a process started to evolve within myself. Maybe like after I moved here to Costa Rica in 2018, I started to feel some kind of very deep, I can't say that I saw visual memories of anything, but I had a deep knowing of Maya, Egypt, and Atlantis. And I didn't know what that meant. And I didn't read a ton of books. I wasn't like running around looking for answers to like hold on to. Oh, and Mary Magdalene, of course, the Christos family, like, yes. When I watched the movie Jesus of Nazareth, I was like, oh, it was like so emotional to me, like I was there. When I heard the Cathars for the first time, I was like, oof, wow. So it's like this mix of things: Egypt, Atlantis, the Mayan. And I also could feel like that the things that have been written about it aren't necessarily they might not be the truth of things either, not for me personally, And so we can't just run around trying to put ourselves back together to the past. What we need to do, of course, is be here now, right? Because I also propose that we're in Atlantis right now. We are rewriting the fall of Atlantis right now. Because when you hear about the fall of Atlantis, it was all about genetic experimentation, sexualization, genetic modification, mixing animals and humans, sex with animals and humans, programming with crystals, which our phones are crystals. It was a total genetic explosion and bombing. And so I see that we are in Atlantis right now. This is my Master Atlantean crystal I like to carry with me that I got from Arkansas, a friend gave to me. Yeah, I call Arkansas the headquarters of Atlantis, but now the headquarters of Walmart. If you know what I'm saying, does that make sense? And the interesting thing, and so that's like, it's so deceiving, the idea that 12,000 years ago, there was an island of Atlantis that disappeared and no longer exists. And so like, then we just kind of study it like it was a long time ago, far away in a place that no longer exists or something like that. When you start to like unfold it, it helps you kind of reshape how you think, how you feel, and how you see things beyond what we've been taught in history, his story, right? All right, so I'll just keep going. The wisdom of the Vedas is attributed to the rishis. Great, and I want to say something else. I really like to weave in the Ascension Glossary here. And I want to say that if you read in the Ascension Glossary, it talks a little bit about the NAA, which is the negative alien agenda, which as soon as I heard that shit, it made a whole lot of sense to me. And it talks about memory wipes, and it talks about implants, and which is another reason why people don't have the ability to remember. So then we come into a limited human 2-strand DNA body, and we've literally just been taught whatever we've been taught, whatever they want the narrative to be. And it's all about colonization, it's all about sacrifice, it's all about human sacrifice. Even the Bible is like sacrificing sons, sacrificing animals. Everything you hear about the Maya is about sacrifice. You're like, that's not what I remember, actually. But I guess that's what somebody that's addicted to killing, sacrificing blood, and pedophiles would write. You know, it would be ideal for them to write a history that would keep repeating itself, that's much like what they like, what the Canaanites like, and global elites, whatever terminologies that you want to use for things. Anyways, we've just been stuck in that repeating of false history over and over again. But I see it as like our last reset was no later than 150 years ago, and maybe even less. Like, I don't know, 1902, like, 1885. Like, I'm just throwing out some possibilities and probabilities. And then you bring Tartaria into the picture, whether you think it's real, whether you think it's a psyop. Somehow you've got to start to explain why we've had such beautiful, advanced technologies and structures that were built, and now everyone's just living in, cement and tin canned Wi-Fi computer circuit boards, fueling up the AI beast. So we've come a far way from where we were. And we are here to return. There's no bitterness in me. There's no fear about it. It's like, I fucking remember. So I'm coming from clarity. That's my stability sphere, and the star pearl is the 57 of clarity. And when you pull yourself out of the mire of everything, you can start to have that deep clarity where you're not so easily convinced. You've got that X-ray vision. You can clearly see. And you're not here to be convinced. And that's what I'm invoking and inviting for all of you, for those with eyes to see, that you can see clearly now, that you don't fall for any type of bullshit out there on any level, with any individual interaction, planetary interaction, government interaction. Not here to be bullshitted. And that's the strength of a goddess. That's the strength of a god. That's the strength of a warrior. And that's what we're being called into as we're communicating today on the final day of this cycle of the white wind of communication, breath, and spirit. This is a high priestess transmission of an oracle nature. So the wisdom of the Vedas is attributed to the rishis, great teachers who attained liberation many aeons ago, and left us a set of profound maps and teachings that would assist us in attaining liberation and, in time, escape the so-called Maya, or world of illusion. One of the foundation stones of the Vedic tradition is the notion of karma, the idea that every act, thought, or intention carries a charge, which in time creates a domino effect that returns to us at a later date. Most of us are familiar with this principle, perhaps not so well known, however, is the doctrine of the sanskaras. The sanskaras are the specific memories you carry from life to life according to the karma you've taken on in this lifetime. These are actually far more than simple memories. They are charges of kinetic energy stored in the sheaths of your consciousness, which over time determine the shape of your life and your destiny. Sanskaras give rise to all human desires, which in turn create more sanskaras. Thus, the ancients say you are caught in a wheel or a net of your own making, paradoxically unable to remember who you truly are because of the memories you keep creating. The 33rd shadow is the great shadow of our forgetting. As we saw with the 12th shadow and the 56th shadow, this is one of the three great tests we have to face in our evolution on this planet. The 33rd, the 12th, and the 56th shadows are all related genetically to the 3 stop codons in the human genome. Since it is your memories that keep you in the state of forgetting, your greatest challenge in life. Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, I have to show everyone. Thanks, Eduardo. Look at these beautiful flowers from my love. Oh my gosh. Ooh, galactic celebrations. Damn, we can end the call right now. The flowers are sending out the messages. Actually, if you want, I'll move the crystal and you can put it back over here.
Maybe it's will be.
If I put that there.
It's will be.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Bringing in the flow. Can I have some more of this tea, babe? I've been drinking this tea since I stopped drinking coffee. It's been about 3 weeks now. I can't believe it. Doing pretty good. Haven't even needed it. I mean, I still like to have a hot cup of that type of thing, but it was never for the energy. It's just a habit. But now, now I use my coffee pot for, I've been making like lemon and ginger. And so it brews like coffee. It's a perfect medicine. Look, these are bobensanas. If you've been following me a little bit, I've been posting a lot about the bumblebees and the hummingbirds and all of the exotic birds that come into my front yard, and they love this tree, the bobensana tree. So beautiful. And I got some hydrangeas. I love hydrangeas. Okay, so let's get back to it. We're gonna dive into the stop codons, 56, 12, 33. Since it is your memories that keep you in the state of forgiving, your greatest challenge in life is to see through your own illusion and thus slip through the net itself. How then do we ever escape this mad paradoxical hall of mirrors when every desire we have serves only to tighten the net around us? Well, there is one desire that is the exception, the desire to remember yourself. This is the desire that the 33rd shadow conceals. The desire to escape the Maya begins your process of awakening, and for the first time begins to unwind your sanskaras instead of feeding them. Your sanskaras are truly wound opportunities. They are like karmic wormholes that pull you towards certain people and push you away from others. The programming partner to the 33rd shadow is the 19th shadow of codependence. Thus, your relationships offer you the greatest opportunities to unwind the wound. The very word wound clearly indicates how we are bound by something that is literally wound around our genetic code. These deepest of memories or sanskaras are what give rise to your most challenging relationships in life. Codependence is about being energetically wound around someone else in a way that feels deeply uncomfortable and destructive. Even so, it is just such relationships that offer you the most direct way to pierce the veil of your forgetting. It is these difficult relationships in your life that eventually drive you to question yourself, your love, and the underlying reason for your life. To unlock the hidden secrets of your sanskaras, you must begin to fully face your own life and the pain that lies inside the various layers of your being. The 3 stop codons are genetic markers inside your physical DNA that, when activated, begin to unplug you from the illusory world of the outer senses. This codon ring is called the Ring of Trials for good reason. Every human awakening must arouse the hero or heroine inside you, and that inner being must face its mythical trials. It is only the intensity of your own dissatisfaction that has the capacity to jog your awareness out of the sleeping field of the Maya. It all begins with the 33rd shadow, which seals the mass consciousness deep within the matrix of the senses. Despite many popular beliefs, the specific karma that you carry in your physical body has no direct connection to your past actions or your past lives. Your sanskaras are part of a collective energy field that is cleansed and reset each time you take an incarnation. To understand this mystery in depth, you can explore the 22nd gene key and its great mystical theme of redemption. To really understand how your sanskaras work, you have to contemplate your relationships in some depth. There are always certain people in your life to whom you are strongly drawn that you sometimes feel you remember them from somewhere. This feeling of cellular memory between people is a sign of a karmic bond, and all karmic bonds are formed from samskaras. Such relationships are always intense and can be very challenging. They're love-hate relationships. When you enter deeply into such a relationship and stay committed to its process, you are courting the presence of grace. To accept the trial is to transform the codependent pattern of the relationship into a higher frequency, and this takes great love and surrender. There is no situation on earth that cannot be used as a means to raise your frequency and open your heart to your inner divinity. The 33rd shadow, therefore, governs all the endless cycles of existence and incarnation on this planet. Wow, so the 33rd governs all the endless cycles of existence and incarnation. So, like maybe you've heard of the idea of escaping the loops of reincarnation. As everyone keeps going back and like reincarnating. See, and I believe we're moving into something that is returning to more of an eternal and immortal way of being and understanding. The idea of death as we've been taught it. Again, going back in the histories and you're being taught about like death and slicing and dicing and sacrifice and graves and suffering and war and blood. It's like all these histories are like that. And I'm like, but I remember when we didn't die. Like I remember when we didn't bleed. Like I remember when there was no war. This hasn't been happening all that long. That's how I know we're in timeline wars, actually. And I want to say this, like, I believe that Richard Rudd was able to bring this information into a certain level, but there's always room for development, and the unfolding of what's written here and what we're all starting to figure out as we start to come together. So let's see. The 33rd shadow governs the endless cycles of existence and incarnation on the planet. It keeps you directly asleep by concealing the past from you. Around the energetic and etheric boundaries of our planet lies a great veil called the Ring Past Not. The Ring Past Not is an energetic grid that connects the higher planes to the lower planes. Until the frequency passing through your DNA rises above the level of this great atmospheric veil, your true, universal, and eternal nature cannot be revealed to you. If you were to remember that you've lived the same old story in different nuances a billion times over, and that it still causes you the same suffering, you would immediately snap out of your age-old human patterns and transcend that suffering. The 33rd shadow keeps us hidden from this greater life. It keeps you in retreat here on this planet of suffering. It keeps humanity locked into the material forms until such time as your consciousness begins to spontaneously awaken of its own accord. The 33rd shadow ensures that we remain in the illusion that we are separate and alone, instead of being unified and all one. You know, when I think of sanskaras and how it has the word scar, and you can also think about like, what scars do you carry? You know, what physical scars do you carry? And how could they be not just connected to this lifetime? You know, because one time I heard, oh, I can't remember who it was. It was someone talking about stories of the goddess too, and something about scars. And I have a big scar on my face right here. When I was 5 years old, I was bit by a dog named Shadow. Talk about facing your shadow. Now, I mean, of course, back then, as a 5-year-old with your face basically being chewed off by a dog, you know, that's a pretty traumatic event in your life. And then after I awakened from that and returned, I mean, I went through the normal things that you go through with like self-image type of stuff. Like, even though you might feel beautiful, but you have a scar or whatever it is. But it wasn't until I tried mushrooms for one of the first or second times, I can't remember, where I was literally being, well, first of all, the first couple times that I worked with psilocybin, my face swelled up where my scar is. And I was like, whoa, what's happening here? And I had talked to, I've now worked with psilocybin in many different ways over time. This was years ago, like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And, you know, the doctor that I'd received it from, she was a Chinese medicine doctor, had never heard of anything like that, somebody being allergic or having a swelling. So it was obvious that the mushroom was calling me to this scar, you know, this wound that I had encountered. And it literally was showing me facing your shadows. And then it's interesting because the number 33, right? This happened to me at latitude 33. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia as a child. It was my neighbor's dog, Shadow. And wow, I'm just like having this whole other level of revelation to it. Because the woman who owned that dog, she had an adopted child. Okay, so I don't know if I want to get down into that right now, but I'm just going to tell you some things about the number 33 connected to the Freemasons, right? Who doesn't know that by now? And the crazy thing was, I was in Atlanta at latitude 33. And when I lived there, this was like back in like 88, 89, 90, whatever. Like there were still KKK dudes like walking around, and highly racial. So crazy to even consider. But yeah, that was still a thing. And then I wanted, so now I'm going to hop you to this other connection. Like Phoenix, Arizona is latitude 33 as well. And so many, many years later, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, and married at the time with my husband. And we're at a big event, or like an event with about 30 or 40 of us. I'm with a lot of my millionaire friends that are in this business that I don't know if they're my friends, but you know, we were learning about wealth management, and I was making a pretty good amount of money in the business that I was building and running. And we were on track to start making a pretty significant monthly amount of around $45,000 a month. And so they were kind of like having this meeting with us about, when you start making that type of money, you know, what are some things you can do with that What are some good causes that you can support? What are some things that you can contribute to? And that was one of the first times. I'd already had my near-death experience. I'd had my son Dyer, who was with me on this trip. And I remember, like, we're in the Phinix Suns, right? I remember one time in the morning that I went out and I saw the sun in the morning was like so red. And I was taking videos of it, and it's the first time I kind of saw one of those little orby orbs in the camera, and I was so fascinated by that. But anyways, the whole point of what was coming up for my husband and I as we were starting to come into the understanding of trafficking and things like that. At the time, I don't think I understood the level of child trafficking. I was just thinking of trafficking at the, adult level. When I was starting to understand that Texas was actually one of the big central hubs of trafficking. And now, of course, I've understood much, much more than that. I can see the whole structure. I can see the connection to the indigenous, to the natives. Obviously, we understand it's running through the governments. Like, I'm still wondering where the actual justice system is for such crimes. This is, again, galactic in nature. But that was my main goal at Latitude 33, Phoenix, Arizona, was how can we help? And of course, I was thinking in the monetary way, because I was starting to make a pretty significant chunk of change and that I would be able to utilize my money to assist with that. But what I learned is that it's not money that's needed, it's awareness and exposure. And yeah, it's quite a topic, right? I absolutely stand for the complete ending of satanic ritual abuse on this planet. And I do believe that we are the Justice League, here to understand and come to a completion of this cycle, because it's become a prison for so many, and it affects more people that we know than it doesn't, actually, on all levels. Because it isn't just trafficking. A lot of this stuff is happening in people's homes. It's of course happening in the tribes. It's never not been happening. And so now, the mushroom showed me one day when I said facing your shadow, and Latitude 33, the way, of course, it's about facing your own shadows within yourself, absolutely. And I've been very humble and honest with myself about taking everything I see out there and turning it in on me, and doing the work that I can do on the inner planes to purify, to purify and to transmute and to transfigure and to observe and to witness, and to really handle the shadows. But then at some point it's like, all right, it's go time. Like, we are the vampire slayers. Like, we are the warriors of light. And we don't stand for these games on this planet. And that's when the guardian energies of the dragon mothers come in to the picture, the protectors, the honor, the integrity, the righteousness, the protection, the guardians, the responsibilities. And so somehow I feel like we've all been set on our paths in our own ways as representatives of the truth and the light. And I'm just sharing with you a little bit of my own personal journey connected with this number 33. And how it definitely feels like over the years, I've been in the undercover mother mode and not present with my first 3 children that I birthed into this planet. Exploring how these operations work, observing them, witnessing them on all levels, because the trafficking happens on the poverty level, but it also happens on the elite level. And so it's happening on all levels, including like where I'm living right now, and I'm getting to know some of the local Costa Rican families and communities here. And they're telling us, like, we do Reiki and energy work for them, which is so cute because it's kind of a new reality for them, because Costa Rica is very Catholic. And so they're pretty used to like going to the Catholic Church and, you know, doing the thing. And then we're now introducing them to, you know, energy work and crystals. And yesterday, Eduardo was using, this woman had pain in her bunions, and he heated up the pit of an avocado to massage her bunions. Like, we're just helping whoever comes to the door, laying hands on people, you know, the old fashioned way, with pure heart's intent, you know, or like introducing someone to essential oils. And it's very fun, the way that we're bridging the worlds here. But it's also giving us an opportunity to start to hear the truth about what's been going on just in Costa Rica, as an example, about the actual human trafficking. Oh, it's just so crazy, actually. Like, we started, now where we live, we started meeting so many people. Like, my partner is from Costa Rica. But now in this location, which is far from where he was, Costa Rica is not a gigantic country or anything like that. We started meeting so many people in this area that they were like, oh yeah, we used to live in the United States. And I'm like, oh, where? And they all say New Jersey. And I'm like, wow, what is the pattern? Why would so many people here be connected to New Jersey? Like, it's not so common that you would even meet someone in Costa Rica that's ever traveled out of the country. You know, there's a lot of hard work going on. There's a lot of hard labor. The people working here on average are making like $4 an hour. I'm not kidding about this. For building, construction, and cleaning, $4 an hour. And it's a little hard for me to digest when I see all of my American friends come over and they're just like taking advantage of it. And it's not so easy to survive on that type of income here, which is exactly why, and this is what I've put together that's quite sad. It's exactly why they start to sell their children or sell themselves to prostitution, because the reality isn't sustainable at the current rate. It's the breakdown in this poverty that causes these types of things. It's like, you know, a woman could work 5 days a week, 15 hours a day, just to pay for the things that she needs for her and her family. Or she could go have sex a couple times and, you know, put some meat on the table, you know, or get some toilet paper and some soap. And this is the real reality of what's going on. But what I'm learning is that so many of these people from this area have been trafficked to New Jersey over many years, over the last like 50 years, to do slave labor in the United States. No, I have no idea, River. You're gonna have to look for him. I know you'll find him. He can't go far, I'm sure. You'll find him. Maybe look upstairs where the laundry, he's putting laundry in the sun. So, yeah, this is the reality of what's really been going on. Little did I know in my surrender experiment of just going where I'm called with my family, with the small amounts of things that I still care to own. Would I be led in the middle of what I'm observing, witnessing, and hearing about how they kind of started a lot of these cities with prostitution and how they're trafficking these young girls from a young age, and how, you know, everyone's just sleeping with everyone and getting, and it's not like it just happens here, it actually happens everywhere. You know, and I'm learning a lot more about how women have actually truly been used as incubators just to have children to be taken, to be used for rituals or to be adopted or whatever else. I mean, I have a whole nother level of questioning now around anything that has to do with fostering and adopting. Because I remember when I used to think that that was such a noble thing, but now I can't help but have suspicions about, I know there are still cases where there's like something beautiful and true and honorable about adoption. But what I'm witnessing now is that there's a lot of adoption and fostering that's been going on that's yeah, is another level of trafficking. So not everything is as it seems. Not everything is underground dark tunnels. You know, it's happening wide open in different ways, and it might not look as dark and severe until you peel the layers back. And so this is then where I go, like, who is the justice system? Where is the justice system when you see all of the things that have gone on with the Hollywood games of entertainment around everything that's come out about sex cults and children, and yeah, just the whole scam of it, and not really feeling like there is a level of righteousness and judgment. And the tricky game about spirituality, you know, is like neutrality and non-duality. I know those places well. I got here through neutrality and non-duality. And I surfed there for quite a period of time until authenticity and embodiment said, fuck that. There are things that are not okay here. I don't care how many people tell me non-duality, this or that. It's not okay what's happening to children. It is absolutely not okay. And I will forego the idea of me being enlightened and holding a non-dual space for the sake of righteousness. It took me a long time to finally come out of that cave, that non-dual mastery cave. And I actually say that's one of the final trials, is non-duality. The final great trick on the paths of enlightenment and non-duality is the idea of everything's perfect and just go along with it and trust and surrender. There are certain things that I was like, no, that's not okay. I'm not going Buddha on that one. I'm going Mother Dragon on that one, you know? And so we need more people to give a fuck. We need more people to care. And I understand, you know, I'm designed to be able to go into the depths of the underworld and not get so emotionally affected by it. I know that's not easy for everyone. And so you've got to be stable in your position, right? The first thing that you've got to work on is being in peace and centeredness within yourself, you know, that you don't get taken along for a ride of emotional turmoil, because things can be really used to create these melancholy waves that can keep you from like your force. You got to stay in your force always, and then the rest will come. All right, so let's keep reading. Repressive nature. So each gene key has a repressed nature and a reactive nature. The repressive nature is reserved. These are extremely hidden people. They find it, so these are the ones that hold it inside. They find it very difficult to communicate with others and often cannot break out of their own silence. They may have the experience of being forgotten by the world. Their natural tendency is to simply hide from people, and they usually find all kinds of ways to do this. In their work, through an enforced discipline or life choice, by living in isolation or far from others, or simply through a deep psychological insecurity that keeps them in a kind of numbness. These people find it very difficult to stay in relationships since intimacy demands that they come out of their shell. When they do finally begin to awaken, they can surprise both themselves and others with how much wisdom they have absorbed over the course of their life and lives. Reactive nature, censorious. Rooted in anger, the reactive side of the 33rd shadow will express itself as an invasive behavior pattern that consciously tries to provoke reactions in others in order to not feel alone. The nature of this pattern is censorship. These people can be adept at understanding the emotional locks that keep others in a state of forgetting. Thus, they try to get attention by pointing out the negative patterns of others, sometimes under the guise of helping them. This almost always achieves the desired reaction, anger, from the other person. However, this way of getting attention is obviously extremely self-destructive and unsatisfying. It leads to a buildup in resentment and creates more anger until an inevitable explosion ensues. When these people learn to break their pattern of projecting their rage onto others, they finally begin to remember what it is like to love and be loved. The 33rd gift of mindfulness, the death of the ego. When you raise the frequency of the 33rd shadow to the 33rd gift, it becomes something rather magical, a quality called mindfulness. Mindfulness is a word often used in Buddhism where it is understood as one of the great attributes of meditation. To be mindful means to be attentive, but it also suggests more than this. The person who displays the gift of mindfulness is someone who has loosened the grip of both extremes of the 33rd shadow. They are no longer held captive by their own unconscious desires, fears, and reactions. At the level of mindfulness, they still hide or react, but now they can see themselves doing it. Once the process of self-remembering has begun, in a certain sense, you enter a kind of purgatory. At least when you were asleep in the shadow frequency, you were ignorant of your samskaras and the cause and extent of your own suffering. Now, however, you begin to see the very patterns that cause your own suffering, and the more mindful you become, the more pain and futility you encounter. After a certain time, however, mindfulness begins to transform the kinetic energy within your own samskaras, and a new view of life opens up before you. It is also through mindfulness that you discover how to refine and purify your nature so that you no longer create negative karma. This process of purification is an integral part of the loosening of your samskaras, and it can be hugely accelerated through working with your relationships. Through the ring of trials, you learn, hey guys, can you help be a little quiet? Okay, River. Thank you. I got a little bit going on today. I got some trucks out loud over to the side. And River's feeling a little Capricorn fire right now in the background. I don't know if you guys can hear it or not. Okay. Through the ring of trials, you learn how to discriminate the 12th gift between that which keeps you trapped and that which brings you freedom. And you do this by moderating your thoughts, feelings, speech, and actions. Similarly, through the other allied stop codon, the 56th gift of enrichment, you see how easily you are distracted away from your true nature by your senses. Thus, you begin to be drawn towards experiences that enrich your spirit rather than experiences and addictions that simply stimulate or overstimulate your senses. Mindfulness, as such, is a very enriching process. The karma inside your very DNA is systemically transformed back into pure essence. This essence, in turn, is so wonderful that you find yourself wanting to experience more of it. You have found the secret of all human desire. Once it is purified into its natural state of divine longing, it becomes the very fuel that returns you to your true center of being. In Buddhism, there is a well-known meditation technique called vipassana. Although it can be translated in many ways, it points towards a witnessing self-awareness. So this is the gift of mindfulness, right? Which is basically what this is all about. The ability to be able to observe yourself, right? In one sense, every one of the 64 gifts is a type of vipassana, a self-witnessing that is a prelude to the shaking off of the negative patterns of your own shadows. True transcendence only occurs at the level of the city, but the bridge to these higher levels is the myriad of techniques and themes of the 64 gifts. At the gift frequency, technique is still extremely valid, which is why meditation or contemplation is so helpful. For most people, it is the gift that is the most accessible route to the higher dimension. In fact, you might say that the shadow is the seed, the gift is the flower, and the city is the fruit. One step automatically leads to the next step. Mindfulness is not really a technique, although it can be in the beginning. Mindfulness is the organic flowering of self-awareness or self-remembering. As you awaken within the Maya, the gift of mindfulness springs up from within you as a natural aspect of your nature. As soon as you begin to witness your karmic patterns in action, your sanskaras begin to unwind. To be mindful means to catch yourself in the middle of a heated argument and to realize you've forgotten your true nature. In effect, it is to see your own victimhood. As you begin to see through these unconscious tendencies that have driven your nature for so long, a new awareness develops within you. It is important to understand that at the frequency level of the gifts, you are not yet free from your patterns, but you are engaged in a process that is progressively weakening them. It is at this level that another interesting phenomenon occurs. The closer you come to the Siddhic quantum leap, the more challenging and intense your patterns appear to become. They are not, in fact, becoming any harder, but you are becoming more and more aware that you are asleep, which in turn makes you feel more and more uncomfortable. However, since you have also learned by now that you are unable to do anything to speed up your awakening, you start to witness your illusion beginning to crack around the edges. This is what the mystics refer to as the death of the ego. Your mindfulness is the only thing that you can rely upon at this stage, and eventually even that too will have to dissolve. Interestingly enough, mindfulness is the prerequisite for genius. The gift level is the level of your genius. When you can objectively view your thoughts, your feelings, your passions, and desires, your own subjectivity, only then you can create art from them. If you are a scientific genius, you need to be able to think with your feelings or feel with your thoughts. This is how genius emerges into the world. It is witnessed. This is also why many geniuses are uninterested in recognition. They know they did not create their genius. It only happens when you're not there. Genius is a state of consciousness, a certain stage in the raising of your frequency. True mindfulness occurs when you become aware that something else is beginning to look through your eyes, think through your mind, and live through your actions. This something else, whether we call it genius, meditation, or prayer, is the larger reality remembering itself through you. You know, before I'd found the gene keys, I was already starting to engage in this type of practice where I was becoming the observer of myself, where every single time I would start to go through any kind of reaction within my body, anytime I would start to feel the fire, like this was an instant type of awakening process for me where I started to become responsible for my reactions, my encounters, if I was having any difficult encounters with people. And I was definitely I'm not a repressive person that holds things inside. I would definitely be more of a reactive person. I don't hide things at all. And so I would definitely be caught more in like reacting outside. Now I will tell you that just because you're repressive and you hide it doesn't mean that it's any less of a shadow. In fact, it can be even more painful and less authentic sometimes, because there are things that are hiding inside that are literally going to cause you to like explode, you know? And so I just like started getting really real with myself and becoming the observer of myself, where I would be like, okay, I'm feeling this fire right now. Like, let me take myself out of myself and kind of like observe from here and operate myself. And like, why am I getting upset at this? What am I feeling this for? Where is this coming from? And a lot of times, just by observing and witnessing it, it would totally dissolve it. There was never really a need to like fight or demand or command or defend or protect. It was just like being able to calm the field, being able to, what do I say? Not detonate the bomb. I would, diffuse the bomb. I would always say, I need to diffuse this bomb. And yeah, I really use the work that I learned from the New Earth with Eckhart Tolle, where he's talking about the pain body. He was saying like everyone has a pain body, and everyone's pain body is addicted to pain and arguing and suffering and all of that. And like as soon as I read this concept, he was saying like someone else's pain body will try to get your pain body to interact with it. And as soon as I heard that concept, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that. And so then I really started to like just observe and practice if the hypothesis of this, put it into experiment and be like, the next thing you know, someone would come in a room and they would have this fire, their pain body was activated, and I could feel their pain body want to fuck with me, my pain body, and I would be like, in that moment, within my inner self, I would be like, that's their pain body. And I knew I didn't need to react with that. I knew I didn't need to fight, and that was how I started to help myself breathe, calm, observe, witness, don't need to say anything, don't need to prove anything. Now there is a time where things need to be said, right? But I need to be centered. And I need to be in a level of groundedness, strength, respect, so that when I say what I need to say, that it matters and that it's heard and it's felt in the right way. So that's how I started putting mindfulness to practice. And now we're going to jump into the final revelation, which is called divine closure, which is kind of like disclosure, but divine closure. The 3 great stages of human awakening are captured here within the Ring of Trials and the 3 stop codons in your DNA. The first stage, represented by this 33rd shadow of forgetting, is the realization that you are in hell. Or in the words of the Buddha's first noble truth, all life is suffering. The second stage represented, I've never agreed with that, by the way, that all of life is suffering. I prefer bliss and ecstasy as your birthright. The second stage represents by the 56th shadow of distraction is the process through which your suffering is gradually transcended. The third and final stage, represented by the 12th shadow of vanity, is the confrontation with the true nature of self. As you rise into higher and purer frequencies, the secrets of the higher realms are released sporadically into your lower nature, and over time, your physical DNA begins to mutate to accommodate these higher frequency wavelengths. So we're talking about the physical DNA mutating so that it can hold these waves, so that it can hold these frequencies of light, which is definitely a purification process. There's shit that we've got to clean out, release, let go, process, lay down, so that we can hold these higher frequencies. That's why I tell people, and it's so far beyond the 5th dimension, but since people utilize this terminology, the idea of going from the 3rd to the 5th dimension, I say trauma does not exist in the 5th dimension. And that's not an easy pill to swallow. But you can't get caught up in the idea of a fantasy of some other dimensional reality, but you're still holding on to the trauma-based dimensions. And so that's one invitation, is the processing and the purification of trauma, and even the letting go completely of the idea of it, so that we can move into our original state. And sometimes the way that the scripts are done with the idea of healing, it's like this perpetual healing trauma over and over. The wheel goes around and around. It is like in one life, you're reincarnating a million times the same old suffering patterns until someone's like, Are you ready to roll? Like, are you ready to roll out of this? Are you ready to see the bigger picture of this? Are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to remember that you came to handle this? And through your liberation from this, you will liberate many others. And this is the great service. And plus, you've got to be able to see yourself from the creation field. And of course, I have patience in this process. I know we're all on different paths and we all have different ways of doing things. And I also know that ultimately we want to be free. And so these are some of the ways that we go about that. Okay, once your DNA is mutated to a sufficient degree to handle these higher frequencies permanently, it is ready to receive the full force of the Siddhic realms. When the 33rd city dawns, all that you were is forgotten, and all that you could be is remembered. The fullness of the Siddhic state causes time to disintegrate and memory along with it. It is not that you lose your physical memory. Rather, your mind can no longer interfere with the purity of consciousness, which flushes the sanskaras out of your whole being. With no direct connection to the past or future, there's now only infinite time. A concept that cannot possibly be grasped in words. Revelation is a flood. Since the beginning of human culture, there have been beliefs and myths that once, long ago, a civilization existed. This is important. A golden age. And maybe it wasn't that long ago. So once there was a civilization that existed, a golden age, in which utter harmony ruled and there was peace upon earth. Those same myths all relate that when this age came to an end, humanity forgot how to love and be in harmony with life. Thus, our existence was erased by a great deluge or flood that swept the world clean, leaving but a handful of survivors. You know, a lot of people talk about with Tartaria that there was a flood, and then you got Noah's Ark and the flood. And, you know, I remember on a couple episodes ago, I was talking to you all about a documentary that changed my life called Before the Flood. So we're talking about having this revelation as a flood and the memory of a golden age and peace upon the earth where harmony ruled. And I swear I remember that more than I remember World War I or II or III or Vietnam War or war. And it's really just timeline wars. So mythology holds many hidden secrets. And it's also funny what we call a myth versus truth, you know? Above all else, such myths conceal the hidden codes of life in pictorial form. Every myth has arisen directly out of the human genetic code, which contains all mysteries in its primal links. This is why the great sages have guided us to look within ourselves for the kingdom of heaven. The myth of the flood or deluge, whether partially based on historical fact or not, is a deep symbol within the human psyche, the symbol of revelation. After the flood, there's always a sign, a dove, a rainbow, the symbol of the new world. The flood itself is a memory of our own future. Its existence testifies that we will each one day be washed clean by the overwhelming tsunami of consciousness, and that your existence as a separated, individualized creature will one day end. Thus, revelation brings an end to endings. It ends all myths. It ends evolution, and it ends humanity. When revelation comes, the universe itself will disappear. You cannot really say that a new world will appear out of the old one because time itself will dissolve. Therefore, all words through thoughts and symbols will also disappear since they depend upon time for their existence. Out of revelation comes true silence. The beings manifesting this city have nothing whatsoever to say. And if they do speak, it is to say that there's nothing whatsoever to say. There are many amusing ways to say this. Of course, this city is also about remembering. It is literally, as the word suggests, remembering, to enter into all the separate members of your greater body until you realize there's only one of everything. True remembering is a kind of detonation inside you, a flash flood that wipes out your past and reveals the greatest mystery of all, the mystery of the eternal now. Apart from the obvious enlightenment that comes with every Siddhic state of consciousness, there are other natural manifestations of this city. The one who is swept away by the 33rd city also brings a sense of closure to the world. The presence of this city in the world signifies the end of an era or epoch. True revelations always emerge at natural end times in human history, and they often leave behind strange sounding prophecies about the next age. The city is also known as a great revealer of hidden secrets. It releases unique secrets through its vehicles into the collective consciousness. Because of its unusual status in this regard, it can also be said to have an archetypal connection to evolutions beyond human consciousness, such as the angelic kingdom, or you could say galactic kingdoms, queendoms. Every stop codon in your DNA precedes a start codon of another strand of interlinked code. Even though we may talk of evolution coming to an end, there are kingdoms that exist beyond our concept of evolution. The 33rd city is an access portal to these higher and wider realities that begin where you, the human being, come to an end. Whenever we discuss the Siddhic consciousness, we find ourselves in a world riddled with paradox. From the point of view of the ultimate, there is no world, no evolution, and no point of view. However, the human vehicles that awaken to the Siddhic level always release something unique into the collective consciousness of humanity before they die. And this something always contributes to the evolution of human consciousness. In other words, even though the story is ended for such beings, their awakening fits into and contributes to the story of humanity. They too are players in the great drama, and they must play their roles before they leave, even though they know there is no one to leave and nowhere to go. This is the testament of the 64 cities. Each city is still a limited expression of the infinite. The 33rd city actually reveals the individual and collective mythology of enlightenment. Enlightenment itself evolves. Even though the state remains absolute, the means by which humanity awakens as a totality has its own storyline within the Maya. By opening us up to higher realities and angelic frequencies that lie beyond our physical DNA, the 33rd city accelerates the evolution of human consciousness. This is such a paradox because the Siddhic consciousness knows that higher consciousness and even notions such as frequency are themselves illusion. Human DNA does have miraculous qualities hidden inside it that are activated by the Siddhic frequencies, but it also has its limitations. Other vehicles exist beyond the binary code of DNA, and they exist in higher dimensions and what we call the subtle bodies. Thus, the great cosmic drama unfolds, and every individual moves through progressive revelations before arriving at the ultimate revelation. The consciousness within form always has a storyline to follow. The trick is to fall in love with your own story and follow it without holding anything back. Two things are then assured. Firstly, you will arrive at the story's end, and secondly, your own story will be utterly unique and unlike anyone else's. This is why it can be so distracting for you to hear someone else's story about how they attained an enlightened state or what disciplines or teachings they followed in order to reach that state. The truth is that nothing you do or don't do changes when and how you reach the ultimate. You simply have to have faith in your own storyline. This is also why it's so rare for humans to attain these states. There is no one to follow. The path is virgin and wild. And when your revelation finally dawns, it does so without you even being there. So that's the 33. You know, talking about the Maya, talking about the ego, talking about divine closure, talking about access portals to the higher realms. And I think there's like a to be continued. And I believe I'm one of these messengers or revealers of truth of something that couldn't yet be communicated or put into the form yet through this book. Do I have a Band-Aid? Did you hurt yourself? Aww. I think I have one right there on the altar. See if you can find it. Hold on 1 second. Dun, 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 dun. It's the final one. I'm gonna close this down. I'm almost finished, and then I can help you some more. So yeah, the path is virgin, right? And because of that, I think that there can be a lot of noise out there, a lot of entertainment out there, maybe even a lot of misleading fantasy and confusion out there. And ultimately, the only way for us to get through the mirrors of this maze, of this Maya, is to come into the full embodiment. And it's really about the know thyself. And so there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of timelines, there's a lot of possibilities and probabilities. I like to bring everything to the quantum mechanics, quantum realities, plasma, you know, really bring it into like form follows frequency, working with energy. Oh, thank you, babe. Rosemary. Oh, Eduardo's so sweet. He brought me some coconut juice fresh, some rosemary, some flowers. I mean, that's one thing I'm here to say, like, true love is not dead. And I hope we remember that. And it starts with loving ourselves. And it starts with remembering and not settling and not giving up and not like giving your energy to anything that isn't honoring and lifting you up. When you remember who you truly are, you start to attract people into your reality that can see that as well. What's not outside? Your Crocs? No, I don't know where you put them. So we're awakening to this multidimensionality. The greatest way to win this game, and there is a game being played, is to wake up every day and say, how may I be of service? What do I need to let go of to rise? You know, align me to my highest timeline for the greatest good for all. And I always like to say, rewrite it all before the fall. Reverse the curse like we rehearsed. And as we start to break out of the dimension of time as much as we possibly can, we can start to put together our timeless future. And in my revelations, we're not here to die. And I have zero fear of death. I already died on a table and returned. And I started to realize like, oh, death isn't what we think it is. The death we die to sin. Sin being without spirit. And so there is a whole new world out there that I don't think that science cannot prove yet and will not be able to until we start to bridge these inner and outer dimensions and start to take serious some of the revelations that are coming in from ones that have had near-death experiences and that are seeing prophetic visions. And you could easily be like, oh, well, that's just your prophetic vision. And that's totally fine. Like, I'm certainly not running around being like, this is the way and this is how it's going to go. And I can only just share from my direct experience, which is undebatable. And that's what's fun about it. So I think we'll close it down with that. Thank you all for being here on the final revelation. I'll be back on Monday, 8:44 Costa Rica time, 10:44 Eastern time. And until then, oh, it's 10:44 my time right now. So perfect. Yeah, thank you all for being with me. And please reach out if you want to dive into any personal one-on-one stuff. I just love digging into charts and really just spending time. It's less about the chart. It all makes sense when we sit and spend some time together and talk about whatever. It's a council meeting. You know, we talk about whatever needs to happen, whatever we need to talk about. But I do everything by cosmic donation. It's my honor to serve in this way. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I'm always opening up those gates for visits. And yeah, much love. Love you, Lucy. I love Lucy. Remember in the movie Lucy, and she has like 100% of her memory turned back on? Like, right? She has this psychoactive substance that's put in her body, and all of a sudden, bloop, it turns on all of her memory, and she can pretty much remember and do everything at full capacity. That's what we're talking about here. If you haven't seen that movie, Lucy, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. All right, much love, everyone. Have a beautiful day. See you next week. Enjoy your weekend.